parenting holds up a mirror, right? We know that it does. And the thought of exchanging the most precious moments that I'm ever gonna have with these kids. You know, if you've ever seen the graph of the time that you spend with your kid and then like how it just gets less and less and less, and that, you know, the lion's share of it is, you know, is up to the age of 18. And to think that I'm exchanging the infinitely valuable with the infinitely trivial, I just felt a lot of shame. But I don't seem to possess the ongoing willpower all the time to resist. And so I need to build practices into my life so that I can be the person I want to be.
I thought we'd start here with the theme of gladness, and specifically, you're a girl dad. You've got teenagers. In fact, did you launch your oldest daughter? Is she just finishing high school? Is that right?
She is just finishing high school, mate. Yeah. I am particularly tender about all of this. This is my oldest daughter, and so the last several weeks have been chocked full of transitional moments. You know, she's 18. She's graduating from high school, just went to a graduation 48 hours ago. We've had parties at our house. And I've been looking at slideshows of when she was young and crying myself to sleep.
So this is precious for me, like truly, when I get to have a conversation at one of those chapter change moments, because reflection's already bubbling up, right? So my question around gladness is, what are you glad that you did as a dad, if you go back 10 years ago or go back 5 years, whatever chapter, what are you glad that you prioritized or glad that you did as a dad that you could share with us that would be transferable?
Well, I love that question. You know, I was a youth pastor for 10 years. And I thought, when I'm a parent of teenagers one day, I'm going to be really good at this. Because I'm a good communicator to students. I make them laugh. I inspire them. The parents say to me, when I tell my kids something, they don't listen, but when they hear it from you, they seem to understand. And I thought, I'm going to be great at this. And parenting teenagers is really hard. It's funny because it turns out the difference between a teenage girl in public as she is holding things together and a teenage girl in private in the safety of her own home. Turns out that's a much wider ravine than I could have ever imagined. And so in 10 years of student ministry, I saw the carefully curated holding it together and being cool in public. And when I became a dad, I got to see what's like when they're not in public. And I'm very close to, I have three daughters, 11, 16, and 14. And then we have another 18-year-old young lady who's living with us. Her mother died last year, and they're a very close family friend. And so I'm living with, my wife and I live with 4 teenage girls. There is always someone crying in my house. It is usually me. So I will tell you that I have been a student of girl dads. I've been a student of parenting. I've read whatever I can. I love talking about this. I really want to get this right. None of my daughters are in complete adulthood with, married and kids or anything like that. And so my journey is not over. But with my 18-year-old who has crossed a threshold of her life where her agency for decision-making is about to change completely. She's going to have more decision-making power than she's ever had before. I am watching how she is beginning to navigate this new world, and I'm really thankful for my wife's investment in her, and I'm very thankful for how we as parents have been able to stay very connected to her. The best bit of advice I think I've ever got for parenting is the importance of really keeping your heart connected to your child. And they have all navigated many different eras of life and highs and lows and rejection and hurt and success. And the highs have been higher than I could have imagined, and the lows have been lower than I was expecting.
Yeah.
And all the while, I'm so thankful that my girls want to hang out with us, and I really cherish the time we get together. We're about to go on a family vacation that my girls want to go on, and I love the philosophy of raising your kids in such a way that when they no longer have to spend time with you, they want to. And we are by no means hitting the childhood finish line, but things are looking good right now. We're very connected with each of our kids. One of the things that I have done that has turned out to be very important and something that we've really cherished is I've traveled a lot for my job, and I've always taken one of my daughters with me. And it turns out that some of the most cherished moments that we have ever had are trapped in the middle of just mundane waiting at an airport, or picking out a rental car, or standing in line checking into a hotel, or letting them choose which restaurant we eat at. And we've experienced all over the country and all over the world, each of them have, and we have these memories that just she and I have. We have insider jokes because we only saw that thing, And I was determined, Jeff, that my kids, my prayer was that my kids would love the church and not hate the church, not see it as the thing that's dragging the attention and focus and energy away from their dad and from their mum and dad. And so I always was careful to frame when they were very young that there are blessings of this job and there are burdens with this job. It's both, right? And so anytime we got to do something special as a result of Dad's job, I wanted to highlight that. We wouldn't have got this if it wasn't for Dad's job. So that the narrative is not just the weight and the burden of this, the price of this. I would say there's a price to this calling, and there's a privilege to this calling as well. And the price is high sometimes. There is a proximity to trauma that seems to never end. There are always people in pain in our sort of direct network, because cancer diagnosis and car wrecks and children that die and all of the things, divorce affairs, the whole thing, we're the ones that hear about that. And so it seems like the world is always in madness in some degree. And that's the price of this job. It's also a real privilege that people reach out to you and ask them to walk with them through the most difficult times of their lives. But I sincerely want my daughters to feel that we get to do some cool things sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's because of Dad's job. And then he's not around sometimes. Or after we do a bunch of Christmas Eve services, Dad's a corpse and we can't even talk to him, And they just know, this is part of it. It's price and privilege, it's blessing and burden. So
the chasm you described between public, what you experience from teenagers in their public sliver of Wednesday nights or whenever you're gathered, to what's actually true on the home front, that's become it's just, I love how clear you describe that. And on the home front, you mentioned your tears, and I'm in that phase, entering with an almost 12-year-old in these moments of I'm struggling to be a calm presence. So what have you found besides, I know you added a dog, Bruce, you added a dog.
Yes. Yes.
What kind of dog is Bruce, by the way?
Bruce is a Havanese dog.
Yes.
And the way that we got this dog is we have, you may or not be familiar with the work of Sissy Goff. Have you heard of her?
Yes. Oh, yes. Such a fan.
So we adore Sissy, and we've had the privilege of having her in our lives, and she's in our daughter's life. And she's the Obi-Wan Kenobi of teenage girls.
So true.
And one day, my eldest daughter, Sydney, was saying, Sissy has this dog who sits in every appointment. And this dog, was a girl. She had a dog named Lucy forever, and then that dog died, and she now has a dog named Patches. And this dog was just this calming presence, dude.
That's it. Yes.
It's like this dog that is just sitting there with her mouth on the couch, just looking at them and blinking and looking at them and blinking. It's just the sweetest thing. And this breed of dog, they look like live teddy bears, honestly.
Just cuddle up.
And so I texted Sissy one day and I just said, Sissy, where did you get that dog? And she sent me the breeder, and we bought a sibling to her dog.
And was this during a moment of like the emotions are just rolling, like I don't know what to do? Was it one of those moments you needed a calming presence to be the calming, or?
Oh, dude, that's every day. It was honestly, it was the beginning of Sydney's senior year, where I was so emotional about this final last of all these things. It was almost like Make-A-Wish Foundation, but no one's dying. No. It's like, whatever you want, I'm going to do for you, you know?
It's amazing.
So she's like, we should get a dog. And I'm like, yeah, we should get a dog. And so me and Sid together went and drove across the country and picked up this dog. And it was it was such a core memory. It was great.
I love it.
So Bruce has been a real blessing in our home.
We said goodbye to a dog a year ago, 14, almost 15 years old, Boomer. We named him Boomer because of the Australian male kangaroo, the Boomer. Yes. So we got a little connection there, and he was the same. Like I actually have been thinking about that recently, and it would be a good year or two of prayer for my wife's heart to turn to get another dog.
Really?
But we'll see. We'll see. The girls are asking. So
I'll tell you, Jeff, I got the dog on the last day of my 49th year.
Yes.
So like the last day of my 40s, and it was the first dog I've ever owned. I've never owned a dog.
Okay, yeah.
And it turns out I'm a dog person.
Yes.
Like, I love this dog, dude. Like, it's the least complicated relationship in my life. I come home, I walk in, he's so happy to see me.
Well, and actually, there's a parallel there. I was going to ask you if there was any dog lessons from Bruce, your dog, that could be fatherhood tips or fatherhood guidance for us. And one is that glad to see. I know that that's a parallel we can take from dogs get it right. Do I light up when I see? Yeah. And I do, but not. But I don't always feel it, right? So I'd love to hear. One is any dog parallel lessons from Bruce for us as dads, and the second is just anything else besides getting a dog that helps you in these. Just would help us who are feeling like, man, I'm finding myself getting sharp with my girls in this moment versus being the calming presence. Yeah.
Lessons from Bruce. Man, that's a cool question. I'd love to create my top 5 lessons from Bruce at some point.
Yes.
Some of the things that I love about Bruce so much is transition moments. So when you're walking into a room, he's just so delighted to see you. His tag is wag. Sometimes he just starts running around in circles. He's so excited. I think the other thing is they nickname Havanese and several other breeds Velcro dogs because they just want to be with you all the time.
Close.
So whatever room I'm in, he just wants to be next to me. Mm-hmm. And if I'm laying down, if I take a nap, he's going to take a nap next to me. If I'm watching TV, he's sitting down next to me. He just never tires of my presence. Mm-hmm. And there's something that's really beautiful about the ministry of presence, being together, being, alongside of one another. Obviously, Bruce and I don't have these profoundly deep conversations, but what we do have is we're together a lot. And it's really actually very lovely.
That's amazing. And it takes me right into, I wanted to ask you about these. There's a temptation for us dads, something that fights directly against presence. And it's a God-like temptation is the way you framed it in your book.
Yes.
And you talked about these things that are true about God that we're tempted to go after. So omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotent, these things that are so true about the smartphone. It actually makes us a little bit like God. So as just a springboard into your book, The Digital Fast. We have to talk about this, and we'll thread back through, who knows, maybe some of the Bruce advice for dads. But give us your, I would just love to hear, where did that come from, and what does that stir up right now when you're thinking about helping us dads?
Yeah, well, what's really interesting about the adoption of technology is that so often we don't completely understand what the unintended consequences of technology adoption is going to be. So we could have never have known in 2007 when the iPhone was invented, when it was a universally positive device. You know, there was no front-facing camera, there was no social media, there was no notifications. You know, so many of the things that have become destructive. It didn't have any of those things. But the device, through updates, has morphed into something that we used to have control of, and now it tends to control us, you know. But it gets back to this human appetite to want to be like God. And it comes all the way back to the garden, where the serpent is tempting Eve and saying, you know, you can be like God. And what is God like? Well, God is limitless. And so he is omnipresent, he is omniscient, and he is omnipotent. And what's so interesting is that these smartphones simulate these three things. So they are all-knowing, because you no longer have to ask yourself, who was in that movie? You just Google it.
Look it up.
Right? Mm-hmm. Who sang that song? Where is someone now? Whatever. You've got Google, and then you've got what is essentially Google on crack, which is ChatGPT. It's really, you know, a search engine that is way, way beyond search engines now, using AI. And then in addition to like things you can look up, you just know millions of small details. We live lives where we skim the world, and we know a little about a lot instead of a lot about a little. And so we read the news, and we know about natural disasters, and we know about human trafficking, and we know about mass murders, and we know about gun violence, and we know about all these things that we don't have any agency to control or influence at all. It's just cluttering knowledge. And it turns out we were not built for unlimited knowledge.
That's it.
So how's it working for you? Do you find yourself more exhausted, more fatigued, you know, less ability to be able to concentrate than ever before? Yeah, this is all the unintended consequences of having so much content, skimming the surface of content, right? We were not built to be limitless. And the same is true about omnipresence. You know, social media causes you, it used to be that you lived in a town and you would have a collection of relationships that were proportioned to your proximity. So you have neighbors, you have family, you have some friends, you know, and then you move to another city and you build new relationships based on new proximity. And you're no longer managing the former relationships. Social media causes the different seasons of our lives to accumulate. So now we find ourselves trying to manage hundreds or thousands of relationships. You didn't reach out on my birthday, or you're doom scrolling and you're seeing that, you know, someone just broke up with their boyfriend, and then someone went on a vacation, and like you're not physically any of these places. Yep. But you are consuming it through a degree of simulated omnipresence. Turns out we weren't built for this. And that imposes a weight upon the way that we experience the world that we were never meant to experience. And then the other is omnipotence, and that is the power that we possess with these devices now. We can control items like magic. You know, we can, you know, it's like you just touch things and you can see someone on the other side of the world, or, you know, we've just got this power at our disposal. And all three of these dynamics were designed for God and God alone. The creator, not the created. And when the created tries to be the creator, it turns out that it doesn't go very well. It doesn't. And so we have a mental health crisis. We have lower self-esteem. We have higher degrees of loneliness. And we have teenagers who have never been worse in terms of mental health. Our technology, our comfort, our wealth, the advancements in medicine are all the best they've ever been, and mental health is worse than it's ever been.
Yeah.
So how do you conclude that? Well, we were not meant to live like God.
Now, there's one thing to study, make a whole bunch of discoveries and export it. There's another to run a large-scale experiment. Bias towards action is always my preference. I'm like, let's take action. Let's try stuff. Let's see what works. You tried a church-wide, let's take 40 days. This was, how many years ago was the first round?
First one was 3 years ago.
Okay. Could you just describe what you guys did as a church to combat this?
And I was super insecure about doing this. I mean, I've never heard of a church wanting to do a church-wide digital fast. And I thought people are going to be annoyed or angry or like, hey, bro, stay in your lane and teach the Bible. You know what I mean? Like, get out of my biz. And so we kind of felt our way through this first one that we did. The first one we did was a 30-day digital detox where I just tried to guide our church through detaching from devices and then allow that to discover what you notice now when you're no longer staring at a screen all the time. The next phase of that was then experience of the delight, because all of the dopamine receptors in your brain start to reset after a couple of weeks. And instead of being inundated with dopamine, which causes your brain to be flooded with dopamine, and instead of it producing joy and pleasure, you just feel foggy and overwhelmed, right? When you reset the dopamine, and it takes about 14 days to do that, you actually start to experience what dopamine was meant to do. You like have these surges of joy. Yes. Like your brain goes back to the way God intended, you know? And then the last movement of it was to determine what do you want your new digital habits to be after you do this. And the metaphor we used was Marie Kondo has this whole philosophy about cleaning out your closet, simplifying your life. And you ask an item of clothing, does this spark joy?
Joy, yes.
And if it doesn't spark joy, you throw it away. And if it does, you keep it. So I want people to Marie Kondo their digital life, the apps on their phone, and just go, does having Instagram back on my phone spark joy? Does having TikTok spark joy? Does having Facebook spark joy in my life? Or is it better for my phone to be a utility device instead of a distraction device? And interestingly, could never have known this when we began, we had about 50% of people who took social media off their phone for this experiment and never put it back on. Yeah. And it's not that they never went onto social media. Sure. They just didn't have it on their phones. Because if you have it on your phone, it's almost irresistible in all of the gaps in your life, the discretionary moments, the time you pull up at the lights, you just want to grab your phone and just start like scrolling and not being present, but seeing what everyone else is doing. And when you don't have that, when you don't have access to that, it's really quite easy to not do it.
Yes. I've been asking the question, does the glow or the shine make my eyes shine? So throughout all history, right, until like 70 years ago with television, it was the moon, the stars, the sunrise, sunset, fireflies, luminescence, and the candle or a fire pit, right? Mm-hmm. Those things do make my eyes shine. Those things.
Yeah.
But this right here doesn't actually, when I'm done, my eyes are not shiny. They're dulled, right? It's the opposite. Yeah. So you did this experiment. It obviously worked, because here we are years later, hundreds, thousands, lots of churches are doing the experiment, and you can take on the challenge on your own as a family or as a church community. What are some of the, like, you know, you're talking to dads here, like what are the responses, the impact that would make a dad say, hey, I'm curious, I want to think about this?
There's so many things that I learned that were not intuitive to me. Yeah. So it turns out that doing it as a community is so much easier than doing it on your own, right? So social scientists call the smartphone problem, the social media problem, they call a collective action problem. And what that means is that we are all doing something collectively that is destructive, but none of us want to step back from it because we're going to get FOMO, right? We're going to get left out. So your kids, if they're saying Instagram makes me sad, you say, well, why don't you delete it? They're like, I can't. All of my friends are on it.
That's it.
So that's a collective action problem. The way to address collective action problems is with collective action. So the church is an ideal space because it's an intersection of communities from all walks of life and age groups and everything, ages and stages and everything. And you say, let's all do this together. So if you're a parent and you're bothered by how much your kid is on their smartphone, chances are you have that same problem. Chances are they're seeing you do it and they're mimicking what you do, right? And that might be true. And that might be true for so many of us, right? So then what you do is you say, we're all going to do something together. Young and old, teenagers, parents, grandparents, your neighbors, the kids that play hockey with, everyone. We're all going to do this together, right? And my kids were not thrilled about me talking about this early on. They were like, this is going to be social suicide at school. So many of their friends come to our church and all of that. And so they started out with great resistance, and several days into it, they were like, this is actually pretty great.
Yes.
Because their friends are all doing it as well. So it makes it easier, So you're providing leadership as a parent. So many of us parents have this low-grade sense of guilt that we're staring at our phones more than we should be staring at our kids' eyes,
We know it's true, yes.
I had a pretty definitive moment with my daughters. I take my daughters on one-on-one dates fairly regularly, like a lot of dads do. And I had a week where I had an opening where I was able to take each of them on a one-on-one dinner date, and they could choose where we were going to go. And I was feeling quietly confident about my dad game, and I thought, I'm gonna ask for a report card. I'm gonna say, what's dad doing great that he needs to do more of, and what's dad doing terrible that he needs to do less of?
Good.
And I asked each of them that same question. They all said something different about what I was doing well. I was driving them to school in the mornings in that season of our lives. They liked that. They liked that I'm a morning person. I'm fun. I make them laugh. They like when I trip and hurt myself. Can you do that more? It was sort of like the things that they enjoy about our interactions, and completely uncolluded with one another. They said exactly the same thing. I wish you were not always on your phone. And those words haunted me. Like parenting holds up a mirror, right? We know that it does. But with all three of them saying that, it's like, I can't explain my way out of this as though it's not true. And the thought of exchanging the most precious moments that I'm ever going to have with these kids. If you've ever seen the graph of the time that you spend with your kid, and then like how it just gets less and less and less, and that the lion's share of it is up to the age of 18. And to think that I'm exchanging the infinitely valuable with the infinitely trivial,
yes,
I just felt a lot of shame. But I don't seem to possess the ongoing willpower all the time to resist. And so I need to build practices into my life so that I can be the person I want to be.
That's it. I've never made a significant change without building, inviting some friends, or let's do it as a family. Like without the collective, I don't actually change for the better.
Right.
I don't finish the book. I don't do this or that without like recruiting people in. You happen to do it at a very large scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to jump to a quote. I can't recall what section of the book it was in, but out of the movie Shawshank Redemption. And you said, or you pulled the quote saying, hey, really it comes down to a choice. Get busy living or get busy dying. Right. And DadAwesome started from, several kind of promises from God's word, but Deuteronomy 30:19, I've set before you life or death, blessings or curses. Choose life so that you and your kids may live. The get busy living right now, whatever chapter the dad's listening right now, they work out while they're washing dishes, whatever, they get busy living. The work that you're doing with the digital fast and with giving tools for collective action, like I want this for myself, for my community, and for my daughters, all spheres. What would you add around get busy living?
Yeah. Well, the enemy playbook is in John 10:10. He comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And Jesus says that I have come that you may have life, and life to the full. So right in that John 10:10 is the very idea you're talking about. There's death and there's life, you know. I think that we may have never seen a tool in history that is more a tool of stealing, killing, and destroying than the smartphone. Now, there is a capacity to do good. Yes, there's a capacity for positivity. But the capacity for evil is 1,000,000x its capacity for good. So, it's some of the research. I got to interview Jonathan Haidt several months ago. He wrote the book The Anxious Generation, and he's really he's the Obi-Wan Kenobi of smartphones and the impact on society at large. And it was really amazing to hear the research that is now come into full view. There wasn't always research on this. You know, we just adopted this technology, we gave it to our kids, and now we're seeing the impact of this. The most destructive age and stage of life with a smartphone is a teenage girl going through puberty. And there are only 2 times that the brain is completely rewired in the human experience. One is in utero, and then the second is in puberty. So somewhere around 12, 13, 14, whatever, their brains are completely rewiring. There is this surge of all these new hormones that are shooting through their body. And if you're doing that simultaneously with comparing yourself to the superficiality of AI bodies and sexuality on online content, it is very, very dangerous and very, very destructive. So I contrast by far this idea when I talk to my girls about it, and we've had many arguments over the years about what I will allow and won't allow them to do, but what I want to say to them is my darling, I've done a lot of research on this. What would you do if you were me?
That's it.
I know that you are going to be sadder, not happier, more prone to depression and insecurity and all kinds of other mental health ailments as a result of more consumption of this digital device. My job is to protect you. My job is to provide for you. What would you do if you were me? And we've had hard conversations over the years because I'm stricter than most about this, but I will tell you that there is a rising coalition. You and your parenting is going to benefit from the previous 5 to 10 years that have gone before you. Because you know what I did? When my girls were old enough to go on a sleepover or play school sports, I found an old iPhone in a junk drawer and I fired it up and I gave it to them.
Yep.
And now, no intentional parent is wanting to do that.
Right.
The first phone that you should get, if you need to give your kid a phone, is not a smartphone.
Yeah.
Give your kid a dumb phone, a flip phone, a phone that you can make calls.
Communication.
Yes, it's communication.
Let's go super practical for a moment. For me, my oldest is turning 12 this year. What's your guidance for the next, call it 5, 8 years of just from what you know today, not perfect advice, but what would you tell me as far as it's a dumb phone first whenever you have to, which it's not yet for us. We're pushing it further and further. Let's push it further. Yes. Walkie-talkies. Walkie-talkies,
that's right.
Give me some practical advice.
Jonathan Haidt's research would say, and he has 4 collective action items as a result of his research, right? The first one, and what's helpful about this is whether you agree with it or not, it's at least clear and you can react to it,
sure.
Right? No smartphones before high school, right? So if you need to give your kid a phone, give them a dumb phone. There's actually a lot of options now that look like a smartphone and they're not a smartphone.
Yeah.
It's just in terms of like helping kids not be embarrassed or whatever, you know. You don't need every kid to do what you're doing, right? You don't need every family. You just need a segment of families to do it. Because what your kid is going to say is, I'm the only one that doesn't have an iPhone, and you're like, no, that's actually not true. I know 4 other families in your class and they don't have iPhones. And so you don't need everyone. To get movement, to get a revolution started, you just need a few, right? So it's usually around the age of 14. Don't give your kids a smartphone before the age of 14. And there's a lot of, there's a phone called the Wise phone that looks a little bit like that. There's a whole collection of other phones that are just options that look like a smartphone, but they're not a smartphone. The second thing is no social media before 16. Social media is very destructive. You need to hold that back as far as you possibly can.
And are you saying yes for your 16-year-old social media?
So my 16-year-old does not yet have social media. Yeah.
Okay.
And she wants it.
Yeah, right.
And this is an ongoing conversation.
Yep.
And she is 16 and a half. So I'm still holding this back.
Hold the line. Hold the line. Okay.
Hold the line.
Yeah. Anything else practical from that research?
So the third thing is that phone-free schools, get phones out of schools, and there is a movement that is happening right now. My kids' schools have no phones. The fourth thing is more unsupervised outside play. So get your kids outside, get them interacting with other kids. If there's conflict, let them resolve the conflict themselves without a parent coming in and saying, now what did you say, and all of that. Let them role play, let them learn to develop interpersonal skills. Get them outside. So that's the 4 things.
Amazing. Darren, as we land today's conversation, just a lot of gratitude. Thank you for taking this time. Thank you for being a spark that now us dads listening can, for our own families, for our circle of friends, and then we can bring to, at the church level, at the community level, at the neighborhood level. So I wanted to say thank you. Around delight, though, just to close, that part of these 4 movements of delight, I know is more possible when we're not staring at a screen, but also just broadly, dads who delight in our kids, delight in the good gifts, are thankful. Anything, just last words around delight that you'd want to share with us, Dad?
Yeah, so what comes to mind is don't carry your phone around with you when you're at your house, right? When you get home, put it somewhere, put it in a drawer, whatever, right? I remember I was doing a digital fast. I had got a couple of weeks in, and my daughter said, come watch me on the trampoline. And I walked outside, and it was like all of my senses had reset, and I was aware that I could feel the grass under my feet, I could smell the air, I could look at the sky, I could feel the breeze, and then my daughter was bouncing. She was about 13. She's bouncing on the trampoline, and she's squealing. And for whatever reason, I can hear her squeal in like 4D, and it's the most beautiful sound ever. And I felt more present, and I had this conscious thought, this is a better life. I am watching this precious creature that I would die for. And I am not trying to capture it and post it. I'm not distracted by a buzz in my pocket and wondering what just happened. I am looking at my daughter, and this season of her life is fleeting. And I want to capture it and breathe it in and consume it as much as I possibly can. Parenting is breathtaking. And being away from your phone, you experience it in high def.
Would you say a short prayer over all of us dads that we'd experience that deeper joy that maybe we haven't in the past?
I'd love to. Let's pray. God, I pray for every person, every dad who is listening to this right now, jogging on a treadmill, doing yard work, driving in a vehicle, wherever they are. I pray that you would give them this fresh, insatiable vision to be so present with their young boys and young girls. The precious, precious gift of being a father. We just say thank you. We don't want to skim it. We don't want to miss it. We want to be fully alive, fully present, fully able to be able to take in every gift, every blessing that you have given us through these children. And I'm asking, God, that you would cause us to be fully aware of inviting that and wanting to experience that. I pray blessings over the relationships of dads and kids. In Jesus' name, amen. you.